I'm Elex Michaelson. This week, the issue is war with Iran?
I had something ready to go subject to my approval.
After President Trump stepped back from a strike, Congressman Ted Lieu, military veteran from the Foreign Affairs Committee, standing by to talk with us. Plus, our conversation this week with House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, the most powerful woman in U.S. history. Then,
Los Angeles Mayor Eric Garcetti is the most ineffective mayor this city has ever seen.
A recall launch for L.A. Mayor Eric Garcetti over the issue of homelessness. Does this actually have any chance of success? That and more with our panel. Brian Tyler Cohen, Elisha Krauss, and Tim Conway Jr. Ding dong, let's go. The issue is starts right now. And welcome to The Issue Is. I'm Elex Michaelson. This week, the U.S. accused Iran of shooting down its drone. President Trump was about to launch a military strike against Iran, but called it off at the very last second. He told NBC he wanted to know how many would be killed by his attack.
I said, how many people are going to be killed? Sir, I'd like to get back to you on that. Great people, these generals. They said, came back, said, sir, approximately 150. And I thought about it for a second. I said, you know what? They shot down an unmanned drone, plane, whatever you want to call it. And here we are sitting with 150 dead people that would have taken place probably within a half an hour after I said go ahead. Yeah. And I didn't like it. I didn't think it was proportionate.
Joining us now from Washington to talk about that and more, Democratic Congressman Ted Lieu of the House Foreign Affairs Committee. Congressman, welcome back to The Issue Is.
Thank you, Elex.
What do you make of what the president said right there? Are you glad that he didn't strike Iran?
I agree with the president that potentially killing 150 people in Iran would not have been a proportionate response. The broader question is, what is the administration's strategy? And right now, the American people in Congress have no idea. We have different administration officials saying different things. We have John Bolton talking about regime change. Secretary Pompeo talks about 12 demands. Much of it is now nuclear. And then Donald Trump himself says, no, he just wants a stronger nuclear deal. So we need clarity from this administration.
Well, what should be the administration's goals when it comes to Iran?
In the short term, they need to de-escalate. I am pleased that ultimately Donald Trump did not decide to strike Iran. I think in the future he should get casualty estimates first before he even orders a strike in the first place and then rescinds it. That is not a good look for him or for the United States. It makes us seem indecisive. But I do agree with the president that that would not have been a proportional strike.
Do you think the Trump administration has made war with Iran more likely?
I think various officials in his administration absolutely have. I think it is not a good idea for John Bolton to have been talking or suggesting regime change. And I think Secretary Pompeo's 12 demands of Iran are really quite extreme. Many of them are non-nuclear related, and they make it nearly impossible for Iran to comply.
Do you feel comfortable that we're sort of out of the woods when it comes to some sort of conflict with Iran?
That's a great question. I have no good answer to that. A lot depends not just on what the Trump administration does, but also on what Iran does. And my hope is that Iran no longer takes any of these actions of going after oil tankers or shooting down drones. I think we need to go back to diplomacy, get both sides to the table, and see if we get a stronger nuclear deal.
Another big story in Washington that you were at the center of this week involves Hope Hicks. She was the former White House communications director. She now, full disclosure, is an executive at Fox News, which owns this show. She testified before your committee this week and apparently didn't say a whole lot. She many objections from her attorneys. Take us inside the room. What was that like, and what did you ask her?
Sure. Hope Hicks was in this interview with a lot of attorneys who were objecting on her behalf. We asked over 150 relevant, important questions about potential obstruction of justice and other potential bad acts. We got back 155 objections. And so we're taking this to the courts. We're going to win in the courts because these objections have no basis. The Trump administration attorneys are saying it's absolute immunity. That's not a thing. No courts have ever recognized that claim. So we're going to win in court, and then Hope Hicks is going to come back in a public hearing, and all that really happened is that she jacked up her attorney's fees.
I mean, what are you trying to achieve with all of this? Because, the Trump administration says we've sort of asked and answered. We went through the Mueller report. Let's move on.
So the Mueller report, if you read it, it basically shows two things. There was some collusion, there was insufficient evidence to charge a criminal conspiracy, and there was lots of obstruction of justice. So we want to ask Hope Hicks about the obstruction of justice elements. She was a witness to many of those acts. We couldn't get any answers because of these made-up objections, so we're going to have to call her back after we win in court.
You support the idea of an impeachment inquiry opening up, not necessarily impeachment itself, but the idea of an inquiry into impeachment. But not everybody in the Democratic caucus, including the Speaker of the House, supports that so far, and neither does Congresswoman Judy Chu, who I interviewed this week. Here's why she says it's not time for an impeachment inquiry.
If I'm hearing you right, you say that he's committed impeachable crimes, it's just not time to do impeachment yet.
If it were up to me, I would say that we should begin it, but let's be realistic. If we go to the Senate level and that vote is not successful, which it looks like it would not be, then President Trump would say, I've succeeded and I've been exonerated.
Is she right? Essentially, going through impeachment just hands a political win to President Trump?
Right. I have expressed my personal opinion to Speaker Pelosi. She's going to make this decision in consultation with the caucus. I respect that decision. In the meantime, we're trying to get the facts out to the American people by holding these hearings about what actually happened, about the 11 instances of obstruction of justice that Special Counsel Robert Mueller laid out. And we'll see what happens after the American people get more facts.
But what do you make of what Congresswoman Chu is saying, which essentially you win potentially in the House, you lose in the Senate, President Trump says, I'm acquitted, right. I'm not guilty, yeah. I win.
Right. So I think it depends on whether people view this more like the Clinton case or the Nixon case. If you view it more like the Clinton case, you're not going to support an impeachment inquiry. If you think this is more like Nixon, then you would. And what happened during Nixon is you also had many members of Congress who didn't want to do impeachment, but then over a series of hearings, public opinion shifted, congressional views shifted, and then you had the House Judiciary Committee, in fact, start articles of impeachment.
Let's talk about one of the other biggest issues when it comes to California politics, that is immigration. The president now threatening that he could round up millions of people who are in the country illegally right. and deport yeah. them. What is your response to that?
All right. I have two. One is political. Last year, Donald Trump and the Republicans ran on building a wall, on xenophobia, on anti-immigrant hysteria. Democrats ran on health care, and we crushed them, took back the House. In terms of substance, you can't really go out and deport millions and millions of people who are undocumented. That is simply not feasible, and that's not even a problem for America, because right now, all the studies show that immigrants actually improve our economy, and they actually help our economic growth.
And last but not least, you know we like to play some games on this show, Congressman. So we've got a game called Either Or, and this is the big important question for you. You know, because usually you play Pat Benatar. We know that's your go-to when it comes to songs on this show.
Right.
But we got to maybe modernize it up a little bit. So here's the Either Or. Do you pick for your music today the new song from Katy Perry or the new song from Taylor Swift?
Katy Perry.
Katy Perry. Why is that?
I like her songs better in general.
And of course, she campaigned for Hillary Clinton pretty aggressively back in 2016 as well. All right, there we go.
That has nothing to do with it.
But Katy Perry and Taylor Swift are now back together again. So if Katy Perry and Taylor Swift can come back together again, maybe the U.S. and Iran will be back together again sometime soon.
Maybe, although my music appreciation stopped in the 1980s.
Okay. So you're not going to dance to us for us to this song, apparently. All right, well, Congressman Ted Lieu, thanks so much for joining us this week on The Issue Is. and enjoy this Katy Perry song as we rock out. Up next here on The Issue Is, we get our panel involved in all of this. Brian Tyler Cohen, Elisha Krauss, and Tim Conway Jr. is back. Ding dong. Stay with us. More of The Issue Is right after this.
Guess it's never really over. From Southern California to the Bay Area, you're watching The Issue Is.
Do you think the president, though, that the Department of Justice should open a criminal investigation into the president once he's out of office?
We're talking about what we are doing now, and we are honoring our oath of office.
This week, I talked with House Speaker Nancy Pelosi after reports that she wants to see President Trump in prison. She's been hesitant to call for an impeachment inquiry, but this week, Congresswoman Katy Porter became the first Orange County Democrat to do just that.
When faced with a crisis of this magnitude, I cannot, with a clean conscience, ignore my duty to defend the Constitution. I can't claim to be committed to rooting out corruption and putting people over politics, and then not apply those same principles and standards in all of the work I do.
So let's talk about that and more with our panel from this week. We got two newbies and one of our all-time favorites. Ding dong, Tim.
Ding dong with you.
Tim Conway Jr. is back, baby.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Of course, he can be heard nightly on the Tim Conway Jr. Show on KFI AM 640 from 6 to 10 p.m.
Creative title, Tim Conway Jr. Show.
Well done. We welcome conservative commentator Elisha Krauss to the show for the first time. She's the host of The Conversation. She's a former producer for Sean Hannity. She's a member of Team Daily Wire, where she works with Ben Shapiro and a whole lot of others on a variety of platforms. And she co-hosts the Lady Brains podcast, where a group of lady friends dig deep into all sorts of topics, and no, Whoopi Goldberg is not involved. Brian Tyler Cohen is the king of viral political videos, especially for progressives. He's an actor, comedian, activist, and host. His YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram videos have been seen by millions of people. He breaks down the biggest news stories of the day and adds his own commentaries. Welcome to you all. And Elisha, we should say, you brought company.
I did.
Another conservative,
There's
right?
two ladies on the panel today, so watch out.
Excellent. Some balance
Double
that we have.
sass.
So you have the little tiny Make America Great Again hat for him?
No, well, I didn't vote for him in 2016.
Oh, you didn't?
No.
Oh,
no, I did not.
That's an interesting.
Yeah.
Who'd you vote for?
I wrote an Evan McMullin, which I think it was really my vote for Mindy Finn, though, because Evan's gone off the rails a little bit.
Okay, well, we're already off topic. Let's begin, though. Let's begin our conversation with Iran, the big story of the week. We just heard from Congressman Ted Lieu. We heard from President Trump. Elisha, what do you think?
I think that it's very clear from the beginning and based on everything that he said during the 2016 campaign that he would never be the guy that would go to war in the typical sense that we're used to sending American troops somewhere and occupying another nation or even trying to replace a dictator. I am kind of surprised that he didn't go for the bomb them option, though. It wasn't just a drone that you go and get at Best Buy. It was a spy drone that cost our taxpayers $120 million. I had a wingspan of like 80 feet. Yeah. And it's a big and very deliberate aggressive action from Iran, and I think that the military is trying to tamp down any response, and not the military, the media in the United States seems to be trying to make this seem like it's no big deal. It's a very big deal. It's not as big of a deal as, during the Obama administration when they captured our Navy sailors and other, American citizens, but I think it should be something that is retaliated.
I mean, look, it wasn't a John McCain that had the song Bomb, 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 Bomb Iran?
Yes, he did.
I mean,
it's a catchy tune.
Yeah, it's a catchy tune, but, now with social media, you get to see what war looks like. Back in World War I, World War II, you just saw pictures on the New York Times or the LA Times. Now you get to see what it looks like when kids are gassed in Syria, and it's a big turnoff, I mean, these are innocent people, 150 people. Iranians would have died last night. Typically innocent people on an individual case, fathers, uncles, brothers, grandparents.
Yeah, and the president seems hesitant to get involved in this sort of thing.
Yeah, I mean, as he should be. I mean, he's been beating the drums of war for a long time in this administration. And like you said, I don't think people have the appetite for it, especially when the last war in the last Republican administration plunged us into a recession.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's talk about another big issue of the week. The big issue of the week being impeachment. We heard from Speaker Pelosi there. She's hesitant. Democrats seem to be split all over the map on the issue of impeachment. Is it time to begin an impeachment inquiry?
I think it is. Look, everybody knows the crimes that Trump has committed. If he was anybody else but the president of the United States, he would already be in the justice system for this. He would already be in prison for something like this.
For what? Can you name a specific crime?
Yeah, there were 10 instances of obstruction of justice. There was firing.
Then how come Mueller then didn't advise the FBI to move
So the reason
forward?
that Mueller didn't advise to indict is because per DOJ guidance, the special counsel doesn't have that option. He specifically gave that right. He conferred that right to Congress, who then has the ability to use the information compiled in Mueller's report to make a determination.
I think that the Democrats are too cowardly to do this, and I think that you've seen that with a lot of their language. Even people on the Democratic caucus side that are saying, yes, I would start, the issues or order of impeachment, and Nancy Pelosi kind of talks about the language, and then she kind of backs off, because I think that you see specifically there are congresspeople that they're speaking to their constituents, but they understand that for the Democratic Party as a whole, especially going into 2020, I don't think that this is a campaign that would be a winning PR move.
But interesting, Katie Porter, who's in a swing district that is led by Republicans for a long time, she's now saying it's time to do this.
What, to impeach?
Or at least to go forward with the inquiry.
Well, first of all, they're not going to impeach the guy. I mean, it's going to go maybe through Congress.
Not going to convict the guy.
It's not going to convict. It's not going to go through the Senate. And it's just a big waste of time. I say we move on, we celebrate the stock market an all-time high, and all enjoy the summer instead of sitting around like, well, you're too young to remember. I sat around for the Nixon impeachment, and every single station, I couldn't watch Donahue, I couldn't watch, soap operas, nothing. Everything was impeachment, and I don't want a summer like that.
Yeah, we need General Hospital.
That's exactly right.
Guiding Light was still on the air.
Guiding Light. Yeah, you guys don't remember that stuff, but I do.
Tim, if you decide not to go forward with impeachment because you think it's doomed at the last point at our most politicized arm of government, then I mean that's a dereliction of duty. These people they wouldn't make a decision to move forward or not with impeachment. They shouldn't make a decision to move forward or not with impeachment based on what they think McConnell's Senate will do.
I agree, but I think that that's why they're being cowardly right now, because they're talking the talk, but they're not actually willing to walk the walk. And when you have, Congressman Lieu and others that are asked about it, well, have you talked to your speaker about it? They're like, oh, well, we're just going to go with whatever the speaker says. And they seem to be not be upholding the courage of their convictions.
But that's with everything. There's no backbone.
Let's talk about another issue when it comes to the speaker. And that is the issue of health care. One of the questions for her is about this issue of Medicare for all. So many Democrats running for president want to do that. So I asked Nancy Pelosi, does she?
All of us agree that we should have health care for all Americans.
Do you support single payer, like Congresswoman Chu does?
There are different versions of single payer, and as I say, we put it all on the table and see what works, how it gets paid for, what it means to the consumer.
Brian, clearly she didn't really want to answer that question.
No, but I mean, I think the general sentiment is that she is for some version of universal health care, some version of Medicare for all. I mean, how we get into the weeds of it remains to be seen. But clearly, I mean, the entire trend of the United States is to move toward this. There's increasing acceptance of Medicare for all.
Not when people find out what they have to pay for it and the restrictions that it would give them, though.
But I mean, this is a crutch that Republicans lean on so frequently is how do we pay for it? But
do you
nobody
have private health insurance?
I do have private health insurance.
Would you be willing to give it up?
Sure.
Yeah, see,
but here's the thing. I've lived in Europe for several years, and I had that insurance as well, and it worked perfectly. It works exactly how.
The population of what nations?
I lived in France for a few years.
Yeah, so the population of France compared to the population of
the
United States.
It's not like they wouldn't make it, proportionate to what the population is. But
did you enjoy France?
I did.
Let me get you a plate.
But yes, you have the idea, specifically with millennials and Gen Xers who say, oh, yeah, having everybody, because we're the generation of like social justice. We're the generation, I think, we're more humanitarian or even more caring, no offense, than yours. But then when they realize, wait a second, this is going to cost how much, and it's still not going to help every single person, you see the polling go from down double digits.
But where were any Republicans?
Over 56% of Americans say that they're not okay with the Medicare for All plan, and that's cross-generational.
You trust the government with your health care, right?
I do. Just like most of the industrialized countries in the world trust their governments to do the same. And we are the envy of no country. Our healthcare system is the envy of no one.
Part of the question that's complicated is that it seems like the America's healthcare at the top is the best, but at the bottom is oftentimes not so good.
Right. People fly into this country to get procedures.
But people also fly out of this country to get procedures.
And I asked that question to Congresswoman Chu. I said, you know, don't people fly into this country for that reason?
Sure.
And she said, if you can afford it.
Listen,
and so the affordability
people flying out of this
question
country
is
are flying out of this country to get procedures that have not been approved yet in this country.
Which definitely needs reform.
Right, I get that.
All right, but no Republicans have asked how we pay for a slew of other things. There's no Republicans that cry out when they passed a $1.5 trillion tax cut for the rich. There's no Republicans that said anything when they approved a massive $761 billion military package.
I would like to know your definition of rich, because there are many middle-class Americans that were positively affected by that tax cut.
We're going to have to leave it there. But as we go to break, we want to bring in a little bit of music. And this is a song from Fitz and the Tantrums. It's called I Need Help, which describes most aspects of my life, especially my personal life. But it also describes homelessness in California right now. We're going to talk about a big potential recall when we come back. Fitz and the Tantrums. Your go-to, right?
Are you asking me to yenta? That's what I got out of that.
Mayor Eric Garcetti, you are finished being the slumlord and death camp leader of Los Angeles.
Alexandra Daddick launches a recall effort against the mayor of Los Angeles, Eric Garcetti. Homelessness up 16% in LA. Our Phil Schuman spoke to the mayor this week.
Are you concerned that the recall will generate any traction?
No, you know, any day I can wake up, have my health, my family, and the chance to improve my city is a great day.
Clear answer to that. In order to make the recall a reality, they need 315,000 signatures from registered voters in LA. So, Elisha, you think this recall is going to happen?
No way. There's no chance. I mean, I think it has 12,000 signatures right now. And this has been, it is kind of laughable to me, though, how I love living in Southern California. I joke that I'm going to be fruitful and multiply because that's what I will do to make California conservative again. But it is unbelievable how idiotic sometimes our voters are, that this guy, back in 2016, we passed a resolution that gave him $1.5 billion to start building facilities to house up to 15,000 homeless people. And he just released the plan after this recall campaign came out.
Right, $1.5 billion for homelessness. And what have they done? I think they have shelter for 55 people.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That's the government taking over.
I wouldn't blame this on Democrats. Okay.
Oh, is that right?
This is an issue.
The whole city's Democrat.
Right. Every city is Democrat because Democrats have good politics. But this isn't an issue for rural areas where they elect Republicans because it's not densely populated. So to turn around and say that this is a Democratic issue is in bad faith.
Do you blame Democrats for anything?
Sure.
Well, like what?
I'll get back to you on that.
Nothing.
That's a good political answer. But how do you but to that point, Tim, how do you actually solve homelessness, Democrat or Republican?
Look, it's a huge problem. I think what you have to do, though, is, you know, there are streets or places like Culver City, right? Culver City does not allow you to live on the streets. So you see in underpasses where half the street is Culver City, half is Los Angeles, half the street's clean and half the street's filthy. Mm-hmm. It's just what you got to do. Burbank is the same way, but LA City, it's out of control. They'll let you live anywhere.
Unfortunately, too, you've seen the instances where the first year I lived in New York, here in LA, you saw that poor woman that was stabbed on Hollywood and Highland by a mentally ill homeless person that had tried to be put into an institution numerous times by his family. The person that murdered all of those people out in Venice Beach, who was living in his car, statistically considered homeless, the same thing, had mental issues, had been tried to be committed by his family. I understand that we need to take mental health issues very seriously and with compassion in this country, and we used to not do that, but I think to ignore that is a part of this plight of homelessness, specifically in Los Angeles, is very ignorant.
So around the table real quick, does anybody think that Mayor Garcetti is actually going to be recalled?
No.
Nope.
No. All right. As we head to break, we want to play Tim's favorite artist right now.
Oh, come on.
Lizzo.
Oh, that's right. You got Lizzo?
Lizzo.
Let's go. I love Lizzo.
We're talking about Juice.
Yeah, ding dong with Lizzo.
Yeah. A reminder that you can stream all of our past shows in podcast form, plus some special digital extras as well. Just search for The Issue Is wherever you stream. We got Tim dancing. Up next, what should be the future of horse racing? This is your big issue.
Come on with this three.
Stay with us.
Come on with this three. You ever go out there?
Yeah.
Is that right?
These are hardworking people that want to keep their jobs, people that love their horses. people that want to do everything that they can to protect the horses under their care.
Workers at Santa Anita Park rallied to keep the park open and to keep their jobs. 29 horses died at the track this year, leaving some to question whether it's time to stop racing altogether. Back with our panel, Brian Tyler Cohen, Elisha Krauss, and Tim Conway Jr. Tim, this is your big issue. You're passionate about the park. You go there all the time. You were just there for an event that honored your dad.
That's right. Well, I only go when they're open. Yeah. I mean, I'm not there, all the time. But I will say this, though, if they, Santa Anita and these racetracks are one of the few places where you can go and remember the times you had with your grandfather or your dad. I mean, I can remember exactly where I used to sit with my dad, and before that with my grandfather in Thistledown in Cleveland, and watch these races. It's one of the few places where men have a place to go and remember the men who were important in their lives and where they sat and the great times that they had.
I mean, Dodger Stadium's sort of like that, too, for a lot of people.
Right, I get that. I understand Dodger Stadium, but you can't lose a lot of money at Dodger Stadium.
But is it, I mean,
or wear a fancy hat.
That's right.
Are you guys concerned about these horses' deaths? Is it time to move on from horse racing?
Yeah, and it's not just Santa Anita. I'm not a big horse fanatic, but I remember reading a lot of stories about this after the Kentucky Derby, because it was talking about nationwide there have been unexplained deaths of these racehorses. And, racehorsing culture is, listen, I'm from the Bible Belt. I grew up hunting and fishing, and I am a happy meat eater. So I am very much a fan of, animals are animals and humans are humans, and there's a differentiation there. But
you'll start to like horse meat.
With that culture, with that culture also comes a respect of the animals, and I think that it should be looked into what is happening, what is going on, and why, and there should be reforms there to make sure that the animals are being treated properly.
They're looking into it. Look, there's nobody that loves those animals more than the people who work on the backstretch. Nobody. And when a horse goes out that they've been, training or keeping for 4 or 5 years, and it doesn't come back from the track because it died, those guys are devastated.
Yeah, and we've seen that a lot this year.
I was just going to say, I mean, I agree. I think that the #1 priority should be the safety of these animals, and I don't think that just by virtue of this being historically a thing that people have done is a reason to keep something. I think that we are allowed to move forward if things aren't good. If somebody can also come forward and say, I used to watch dog fighting with my kid, and dog fighting's not here anymore.
We're doomed. This next generation is
we're allowed to move forward. We're allowed to move forward.
France hasn't. They still do horse racing and polo.
This is the next generation.
Let's end, though, with something else that is enjoyed by multiple generations. So this is the time where we usually thank our viewers, but we wanted to thank one viewer in particular who was watching a few weeks ago when we interviewed Senator Cory Booker. Check this out.
Favorite Star Wars character? I love the Jedi Knights, man. So I'm going to say definitely Luke Skywalker.
Luke Skywalker himself saw that and then tweeted out about it, telling Booker that the Force is with him. So thank you for watching The Issue Is, Mark Hamill. We'll see what Harrison Ford has to say next week. And can't wait until BB-8 is on our panel in a few weeks. Thanks for watching The Issue Is. May the Force be with you, and may the Force be with all of you. Thanks for being with us.
Are you a big Star Wars fan?
I love Star Wars.
Is that right?
Can I be on the panel with BB-8?